there's Tony. Tony showed up. Yay, Tony, we need you. Okay, good. So we're just talking about Ash Wednesday. And Tony, you missed all these wonderful things that Leslie read to us from Eliot's own comments about Ash Wednesday, things that I was not able to re-find. But she's going to post a link to them by our email, and you can check them out. Okay. So I'm going to read you the first poem, which is a poem I think of such grief, such, in a sense, weariness. His life with Vivian at this time was hell, just absolutely hell. And people who would, spend time with them would say the mutual hatred was extreme. The illness that she was experiencing was extreme, the mental illness. And all of this is making its way into this poem. One, because I do not hope to turn again. Oh, I'm sorry, Douglas. Okay. Because I do not hope to turn again, because I do not hope, because I do not hope to turn, desiring this man's gift and that man's scope. I no longer strive towards such things. Why should the aged eagle stretch its wings? Why should I mourn the vanished power of the usual rain? Because I do not hope to know again the infirm glory of the positive hour. Because I do not think, because I know I shall not know the one veritable transitory power, because I cannot drink there where trees flower and springs flow, for there is nothing again. Because I know that time is always time, and place is always and only place. And what is actual only for one time and only for one place. I rejoice that things are as they are, and I renounce the blessed face and renounce the voice, because I cannot hope to turn again. Consequently, I rejoice, having to construct something upon which to rejoice, and pray to God to have mercy upon us. And I pray that I may forget these matters that with myself I too much discuss, too much explain. Because I do not hope to turn again, let these words answer for what is done, not to be done again. May the judgment not be too heavy upon us. Because these wings are no longer wings to fly, but merely vans to beat the air which is now thoroughly small and dry, smaller and drier than the will. Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still. Pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Pray for us now and at the hour of our death. So I think this is gorgeous poetry. And I think it's really important to think hard about the lines. Um, I pray that I may forget these matters that with myself I too much discuss, too much explain. This is the state of the poet's life at that time, this constant tendency to live over wrongs done, wrongs suffered, unsolvable unhappiness, questions, and so on. And so there's this desire for calm, this desire for teach us to sit still, teach us to care and not to care, somehow to be able to let go of some of the suffering. And then referring to the way that the transitory world, the world of trees and springs, water and earth, that's gone dry, that's transitory, that's not, it's infirm, the infirm glory of the positive hour. So there's real kind of distress and suffering in this poem, and yet poetry as prayer, poetry as intending for there to be a renunciatory journey, a journey that may actually get to a different place, not just poetry that's wallowing in unhappiness, but poetry that's plunging into unhappiness for a reason, and the reason is purification, renunciation, and the desire to find another ground upon which to live. And then we have section 2. Eliot says that the three white leopards don't mean anything, but actually he says they do. They're taken from Ezekiel, but also I should mention, yes, the major inspiration for this poem comes from Dante. Dante, as I mentioned last time, was the single most important writer for Eliot among anybody. And what he's doing here is, thinking about La Vita Nuova, which is Dante's short autobiography about meeting Beatrice when she was a kid. She was, I think, 9, and immediately being completely in love with her, but not in a carnal way, and then sublimating that love until by the end of the Paradiso, Beatrice sits at the right hand of the Virgin Mary. And all of Dante's aspiration, the whole journey of the Divine Comedy is eventually fulfilled in a sense, being reunited with her, or with at least the vision of her, So La Vita Nuova, which I had to read in graduate school, it's really beautiful. It's also really strange because it's about experiencing what Eliot's trying to do here too. Take carnal desires, not only of a sexual kind, but also just the desire for the things of the world, the mountains, the springs, the flowers, the trees, and sublimate that and make it spiritual so that it becomes a desire for the divine instead of for the transitory, infirm hour. So here we have this ritual of dismemberment. The three white leopards sat under a juniper tree in the cool of the day, having fed to satiety on my legs, my heart, my liver, and that which had been contained in the hollow round of my skull. And this again is that desert wasteland. And God said, shall these bones live? Shall these bones live? And that which had been contained in the bones, which were already dry, said, chirping, because of the goodness of this lady, and because of her loveliness, and because she honors the Virgin in meditation, we shine with brightness. And I, who am here dissembled, proffer my deeds to oblivion, and my love to the posterity of the desert and the fruit of the gourd. It is this which recovers my guts, the strings of my eyes, and the indigestible portions which the leopards reject. So we have the figure of the lady, this unspecified lady who, accompanies the Virgin, honors the Virgin in meditation. But the lady is not based on, we can't say, oh, that's really so-and-so. It's a figure, a kind of anima figure, a kind of muse figure, but also what a guide in holiness. Um, and this lady plays a really important part in this poem. The lady is withdrawn in a white gown to contemplation in a white gown, but the whiteness of bones atone to forgetfulness. There is no life in them. As I am forgotten and would be forgotten, so I would forget this devoted, concentrated in purpose. And God said, prophesy to the wind only, for only the wind will listen. And the bones sang, chirping with the burden of the grasshopper, saying, and here we get this whole series of paradoxes. How do we write about the divine? Not this, not that, this and that, the via negativa, but also the combination of everything in this absolutely paradoxical plenitude. Lady of silences, calm and distressed, torn and most whole, rose of memory, rose of forgetfulness, exhausted and life-giving, worried, reposeful. The single rose is now the garden where all loves end. Terminate torment of love unsatisfied, the greater torment of love satisfied, end of the endless journey to no end, conclusion of all that is inconclusible, speech without word and word of no speech, grace to the mother for the garden where all love ends. Under a juniper tree that bones sang, scattered and shining. We are glad to be scattered. We did little good to each other. Under a tree in the cool of the day with a blessing of sand, forgetting themselves and each other, united in the quiet of the desert. This is the land which ye shall divide by lot, and neither division nor unity matters. This is the land. We have our inheritance. So again, this is a desert landscape, but it's made purposeful here because it's a deliberate acceptance of aridity, acceptance of the desert in order to be able to move on a path toward hoped for regeneration. And then in part three, and this is taken directly from Dante, the climbing of the stairs in the purgatory, the sort of circular motion, the spiral like motion toward purification. And we have these images, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it would take forever to read the whole poem, and I want to read the later parts. But we've got the three stairs, the first turning, the second stair, which has been described as about distorted love, self-absorption. The second turning of the second stair has been described as defective love, self-disgust. And then the first turning of the third stair, which has been described as a stage of excessive love, self-indulgence, and the attraction or the connection with the physical world. But beautiful figures in that physical world, the hawthorn blossom and a pasture scene, the broad-backed figure dressed in blue and green enchanted the Maytime with an antique flute. So even that has to be renounced, even that has to be gone beyond, fading, fading, strength beyond hope and despair, climbing the third stair. Then language from the ritual of communion, Lord, I am not worthy, Lord, I am not worthy. And the next lines are, speak but the word, and my soul shall be healed. But speak the word only. And then we move on to section 4, this idea of betweenness, between this and that, who walked between the violet and the violet, who walked between the various ranks of varied green, going in white and blue in Mary's color, talking of trivial things, in ignorance and in knowledge of eternal dolor, who moved among the others as they walked, who then made strong the fountains and made fresh the springs, made cool the dry rock and made firm the sand in blue of larkspur, blue of Mary's color. Souvenez vos. Those are lines from Dante, Arnaud Daniel, the troubadour. Remember us, remember me in the time of my suffering. Souvenez vos. Here are the years that walk between, bearing away the fiddles and the flutes, restoring one who moves in the time between sleep and waking, wearing white light folded, sheathed about her, folded. The New Year's walk, restoring through a bright cloud of tears the years, restoring with a new verse the ancient rhyme, redeem the time, redeem the unread vision in the higher dream, while jeweled unicorns drop by the gilded hearse. The silent sister veiled in white and blue between the yews, behind the garden god, whose flute is breathless, bent her head and signed, but spoke no word. But the fountain sprang up, and the bird sang down. Redeem the time, redeem the dream, the token of the word, unheard, unspoken, till the wind shake 1,000 whispers from the yew. And after this, our exile. So there's like real movement in this section. The earth, the water is beginning to come back. And notice how much Eliot's poetry is full of images of water or the lack of water, images of fountains and springs, and images of birdsong. And these are, for Eliot, saturated images. These exist so deep in his unconscious. They're like major kind of symbolic counters to move a poem forward, either into desperation and despair or out of desperation and despair. The bird song, the water, the fountain, the desert, the making smooth the path through the desert, redeem the time, redeem the dream, the token of the word. Yew trees are always associated with graveyards, of course, and the unicorn in the unicorn tapestries, which Eliot would have known, is a symbol of Christ, the one-horned beast, the magical beast, who can only be killed by a virgin. Now we get this like intellectual struggle in section 5, and I've got my notes here. They say urgent, anxious language practically breaks down overdetermined rhymes. This kind of whirling movement. Um, Troping on St. John of the Cross in the beginning was the word, troping on the Bible too, that logos theology, the word. If the lost word is lost, if the spent word is spent, if the unheard, unspoken word is unspoken, unheard, still is the unspoken word, the word unheard, the word without a word, the word within a word, the world and for the world, and the light shone in darkness, and against the word, the unstilled world still whirled about the center of the silent word. So we've got the world and the little w word whirling, but still the capital W word endures someplace in the middle of this whirling. O my people, what have I done unto thee? Where shall the word be found? Where will the word resound? Not here, there is not enough silence, not on the sea or in the islands, not on the mainland, in the desert or the rainland. For those who walk in darkness, both in the daytime and in the nighttime, the right time and the right place are not here. No place of grace for those who avoid the face, no time to rejoice for those who walk among noise and deny the voice. I would say my own opinion is if this were not deliberate, it would be bad poetry because the rhyme, as I said, is overdetermined. It's like, but I think it is deliberate. And I think it's very overdeterminedness makes the point that this is a real struggle that's going on here. This is a real kind of moment of anxiety in the poem to find that capital W word in the midst of being, in a sense, bombarded and barraged by, anxiety and anxious thoughts and the
Uh,
feeling that you cannot find what you're looking for. So I
uh,
say,
this is I'm a little puzzled by what you've just said. I'm trying to figure it out. Now, so you're saying that the rigidity of the rhyme scheme is, I don't know if that's the right word, rigidity, but
the
can you expand?
overdoneness. Yeah, the
Yeah, over.
overdoneness. Where shall the word be found? Where will the word resound? Not here, there is not enough silence, not on the sea or in the islands, not on the mainland, in the desert or the rainland. You know, for those who walk in darkness, both in the daytime and the nighttime, the right time, that kind of stuff. That's an awful lot of rhyme, internal rhyme. It's an awful lot of rhyme that just won't stop. And to me, it bothers me. It bothers my brain.
How so?
It makes it go, oh, like that to me, okay? Because it's too much. And
It's almost like a really bad song, like sort of popular music, the sort of the noise. It is like noise.
yeah, and
People
it's
talk about
deliberately like noise because it's about that noise that won't shut up. He says, where is the silence?
It comes to a climax with the unstilled world, still world. And I think that works, even though
Yeah.
that's also very extreme with internal rhyme, because still meaning it's still going on, and still meaning stillness or calm or silence kind of, play off against each other. And world, WORLD, is an experience of whirling.
Hmm.
So, the it's almost like a pun, but it's not quite a pun. But I think at that point you think, oh, it was leading up to something.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, I just have to admit that was completely lost on me. The subtlety of your ear for this was completely lost on me until you pointed it out.
Well, as Laurel says, it's like a song that's overdoing it, you know. I love you, be true, I'm so blue, woody doo, like that, you're like, oh, shut up already. Oh God, no. Let's move beyond this.
Rap does that all the time.
Yeah. Will the veiled sister pray for those who walk in darkness, who chose thee and oppose thee? Those who are torn on the horn between season and season, time and time, between hour and hour, word and word, power and power. Those who wait in darkness. Will the veiled sister pray for children at the gate who will not go away and cannot pray? Pray for those who chose and oppose. And he's talking about himself at that point. He's talking about all those who make a choice and yet part of them opposes that choice, who would pray but cannot pray, who feels stuck in between this and that. Oh, my people, what have I done unto thee? Will the veiled sister between the slender yew trees pray for those who offend her and are terrified and cannot surrender, and affirm before the world and deny between the rocks in the last desert, between the last blue rocks, the desert in the garden in the desert of drought, spitting from the mouth the withered apple seed. Oh, my people. So the desert in the garden, but yet there's a garden in that desert. At least that's what this journey is trying to be about, is finding the garden in the desert, right? Finding that plenitude, that fertility, that blossoming in what appears to be a desert. And then we get the last section, which I think is just so, so beautiful. Although I do not hope to turn again, although I do not hope, although I do not hope to turn, wavering between the prophet and the lost in this brief transit where the dreams cross, the dream crossed twilight between birth and dying. Bless me, Father. Though I do not wish to wish these things, from the wide window toward the granite shore, the white sails still fly seaward, seaward flying, unbroken wings. And the lost heart stiffens and rejoices in the lost lilac and the lost sea voices. And the weak spirit quickens to rebel for the bent goldenrod and the lost sea smell, quickens to recover the cry of quail and the whirling plover. And the blind eye creates the empty forms between the ivory gates, and smell renews the salt savor of the sandy earth. This is the time of tension between dying and birth, the place of solitude where three dreams cross between blue rocks. But when the voices shaken from the yew tree drift away, let the other yew be shaken and reply, Blessed Sister, Holy Mother, Spirit of the fountain, Spirit of the garden, suffer us not to mock ourselves with falsehood. Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still even among these rocks, our peace in His will. And even among these rocks, Sister, Mother, and Spirit of the river, Spirit of the sea, suffer me not to be separated, and let my cry come unto thee. So we have some time to talk, and I would love to hear any comments or observations or questions. Yeah, Douglas.
Well, there's there's just so much, but there's a lot of alchemical imagery in this. Now, of course, medieval alchemy had to cloak its self in the Christian symbolism, but there has to be a separation before there can be a reunion, and I mean it just goes on and on. So, and the other thing that struck me, it also struck me in before was in what the thunder said was that there, and Eliot would not have known about this because it was discovered in the 40s after he'd written the poems. But in the Nag Hammadi library, there's a poem called "Thunder Perfect Mind,"
Wow.
and it has some of this opposition. You know, I'm the virgin who's the whore. You know, the whole
Mhm.
back and forth of the opposites. The thunder speaks,
Yeah,
and but it's pretty interesting.
that is pretty interesting. Yeah. And I like there's a little spirit of Hinduism in this poem with the not this, not that. You know, God is not this, not that. God is that which cannot be said. Anything that we can say is not it, you know. Other comments about this poem?
Well, that last bit um, comes, what you just said comes straight out of the Tao Te Ching. And then also Wittgenstein, oddly enough, not exactly a poet, although can be poetic sometimes. Uh, so it kind of it almost negates the whole enterprise of poetry, what he's saying.
Well, but does it?
Well, I don't know about negates, but it well, it's very Eliot-like, you know, to have these oppositions. And so, right in the middle of saying all this poetry, he's saying this just can't be said.
But the fact that you're saying this can't be said makes us think about it, right?
Well,
Right. I mean,
that's
I always said that the Tao Te Ching should have ended after the first line.
in four quartets, he does say the poetry does not matter, which is a remark that used to irritate me. But I think what he's saying is that has to be left behind too.
Hmm. But he also says something, um, let me see if I can find it, where he talks about what he wants the poem to do. I might have to wait. Where he says, ah, yes, okay. Words move, music moves only in time, but that which is only living can only die. Words, after speech, reach into the silence. Only by the form, the pattern, can words or music reach the stillness, as a tiny star still moves perpetually in its stillness. Not the stillness of the violin while the note lasts, not that only, but the coexistence. You know, and he's talking about the way that something can extend beyond itself into silence. And he's saying that that's what the words can do. The words of poetry can extend beyond themselves into silence. And so, in that silence, that's Wittgenstein's, you know, that which can't be said had better be left unsaid, or whatever it is that Wittgenstein says. But I think that that's Eliot's point here is that he's not going to be able to say, okay, I know what God is. This is what God is, one, two, three. This is not that kind of poetry at all. But he is saying that there's this deeply felt assurance of something that he's calling God, the divine. But it's
You
just
know,
that way to say it.
and that has a long tradition with mysticism and philosophy, this whole idea that there's this point at which everything becomes silent or nothing can be said. And
Sure.
that's not unique to Eliot. It you find it in Plato in a way. You find it in definitely in Aquinas. You find it in the I Ching. You find it in Wittgenstein, and uh, you find it in the meditations of
Sure.
mystics, of course. Boy, you know, now that I think of it, it's just like ubiquitous almost. That idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if none of those people had written, then we wouldn't be sitting here thinking about it, or maybe about it. Maybe we
The
would,
that's
you know?
the what an irony there is there.
Yeah, yeah. Other responses to this poem. I mean, I love it, but Laura, yeah, Laura.
Yeah,
I had to.
I,
I'm sorry.
I think that one of the things that strikes me is that although, as in the Gospel of John, the Word is and in this poem, the Word is at the heart of the mystery. And
Hmm.
I don't, maybe that's because we're humans and language defines us in a way, so
Hmm.
that we would think that the word in some intrinsic deep way is really important. It's also important, the silence is important. And the other thing that it reminds me of very deeply is when my mom was in dementia care in here in Davis, I would eat dinner every evening with and help out. And there was one woman who was clearly very, very devout, and she wasn't there too long. I think she was pretty advanced in her state, but she would sit at dinner and pray. She would pray the rosary. She would Hail Mary and go through the whole, and she wouldn't eat because everything for her, this word, this chant, and it was almost in poetry the way she spoke. But it was possible to persuade her to eat if you could switch her to saying grace before the meal,
Oh, that's funny.
bless this food to our youth in a service. Amen. Then she would eat a few bites, but for her, the word of the prayer was at the heart of it, that was essential to
That
her,
was her food. Yeah.
her connection. That was her faith. But those words, which irritated some of the other people at the table, but uh, the words that people hung on to and what people said were a sort of a connection in a way that was um and people at the end of life, really between life and death, and language words mattered, and then they're gradually lost. But this just kept calling her to my mind to sit next to her, and that she felt somehow she had her connection, her faith, the action that she retained was,
Yeah.
and that those words and the images that they evoked for her, which I am sure indeed were like the visual images that Eliot evokes here. And
Yeah.
she was comforted by those words and the images they brought.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Other reactions.
So it's interesting to me that the opposition of word and silence, because in a sense, the word is an initially associated with, the word we create by the word, we describe by the word, and we are who we are with the word. Um, and so, and what Laura was talking about, a woman who created her space through words, and the frustration of dementia is your inability to use words to show yourself and so on. And so sometimes you look at that in the opposition to what we want to get to the point of silence is like, is that where, is that my ambition? What is my ambition here? Where am I going with the silence? If I use words all the time, or if I can't say words, that's my frustration. I mean, I'm sort of struggling. You see my struggle on this?
So is there a question?
No, I'm trying to figure out how to understand his view of the word, which it has so many meanings to it, but we use it to be that's who we are. That's how we think about ourselves, and so on. Um, and if I oppose that with silence, what is the silence? What's my ambition with the silence? And
I can probably find you some lines in four quartets that talk about that. Can I?
What are you thinking of?
I said to my soul, be still and let the darkness come upon you, which shall be the silence of God. Yeah, I can't find it quickly enough.
Is that in?
I can't remember.
It's either.
I have just because we're all going to revert to our own areas. Wittgenstein talks about how words are always meant to accomplish a task, and so he talks about you just look at what's going on, look at what the task that is intended to be accomplished by this word is, instead of, and so this is even true of poetry, which is by comparison much more ethereal than what he's talking about. But nevertheless, there's an intention to communicate or to accomplish something with this string of words.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that relates to what you were saying, Neil, but at when you commit to silence, then nothing more is being accomplished. Obviously, you're not going to accomplish anything uh, between two people anyway by being silent.
But then when you're silent, something else can speak to you.
Yeah, I was. Go ahead, Leslie. I can't get this together quick enough.
Okay. Well, I can't be sure I can get anything together, but a few things are reminding me of things. The word, the part on part 5, where you have the word capitalized without a word, um, is reminding me of several ideas. One, he seems to be looking for some kind of he's talking about all the transitory things of the world back in section 1. You know, time is always time and place is always and only place. And what is actual only for one time. He's looking, it sounds like, for something a little bit more eternal and immutable. And I'm thinking about some of the stuff in the 4 quartets where he's talking about this point, unmoving point of silence, which is at the center of the dance. I found a nice visual thing about the pole star and the world axis, which I could send you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm thinking for Quakers, the silence is absolutely necessary to be receptive to the word of God. I mean, that's what you're not just sitting there in silence because you don't have anything to say. So I'm thinking about him, who a man of words, just words and words and words, which are approximations trying to get at the big W word.
Mhm.
Because I mean, Tony, I'm not a philosopher, but I'm thinking about maybe Plato and the shadows on the wall and all that. You're trying to imagine what the immutable thing is, what the eternal thing is. And you can't find the words because humans are imperfect. They make attempts with words. So I think that the only reason I'm not one for wanting to reject the world. I think I think the world is where God is, as far as I'm concerned. But the idea is those transitory things might distract you from finding the deeper thing, which is, I mean, the word was the logos, the Christ, and all that. But if you can just think of it as the real deeper meaning that includes all the meanings found in transitory life.
Mhm.
The reference to Plato, Leslie, I, at the risk of being incredibly redundant, because I've said this 100 times, Plato doesn't say what he thinks. He specifically spends his whole career having conversations about what the truth is and never saying this is what it is, which is as I said, the medium is the message. It's the same kind of thing of avoiding trying to actually, and in other words, you end up not knowing. Aporia is another thing that's the ending of many of the dialogues where nobody knows anything and you just go, okay, that's it. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the contrast we've been talking about is mostly the word and silence. But partly from what Leslie said, it's important to think of another contrast between the word and the world, not only in the sense of the world, the flesh, and the devil, but in the sense of the natural world, which is very strongly present in Ash Wednesday, and Eliot seems to feel he has to renounce it. The most poignant lines to me in the poem are the ones that begin, and the lost heart stiffens and rejoices, and the lost lilac and the lost sea voices. And one thing I think of is that passage in Isaiah where he says, all flesh is grass, the grass withereth, the flower fadeth, because the wind of the Lord bloweth upon it, but the word of our God shall stand forever. And somewhere in an essay, D.H. Lawrence turns that around and he says, yes, the grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but they'll come back
Yeah.
next spring.
Yeah.
Whereas any spoken or written word is imperfect
It's
and
partial.
transitory in a way that the grass and the flowers are not.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this
Right.
brings to mind the idea of mediation because uh, the world is immediate. To go back to the Hegelian, sorry about this, guys, but go back to the Hegelian terminology. The world is immediate. In other words, it's the immediate response of your senses to the outside world. Once you use a word, you've got something between you and the world. You've got the word is between you and the world, and it's
Right.
not immediate. It's in Hegelian terms, it's mediated. Okay,
Right.
enough of that.
Right. No, it's true. It's true. But also in meditation, the point of meditation eventually is to reach that deeper kind of darkness or deeper kind of silence, which is indescribable. But I would just say, yeah, in answer to Neil's question, it's like when you're constantly talking or when the mind is constantly talking, it's full of its own concerns, it's full of its own things it notices and so on. But there's something else that happens when one is able to lay all of that down, and then something else can enter in upon one's experience, whether in our lives that's like another person, another person's desires or whatever, but also a sense of the holiness, a sense of the sacred. Yeah. Thank you guys. Great. Anybody else have anything you want to say?
Thank you for doing this for a whole hour when you said you had to leave.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know why? Because I have a very dear beloved friend who made the hotel reservations. Turns out she made them a day too early.
Oh,
So actually, the thing starts tomorrow. So I'm like, well, okay, I guess we're going to go and spend a day waiting for the thing to start, which is why if y'all want to talk till 3 p.m., no problem. She's so funny. Oh my God. You're very welcome. So we will, and Leslie, thank you for sending us that link because I love those things that Elliot said about the poem. And
I
I
sent it to you, and can you send it to everybody else? Because
I will, yeah, I will do that.
I'll try to find the thing with everybody. And if you're interested, I'll send them that neat thing about
The
the
poll star.
pole star and all that.
Oh,
Yeah,
please do.
Yeah.
lovely.
Can I make one comment? This is such a classic Pomona group.
Sure.
It's like it never occurred to people not wanting to go out and read everything else and be interested in, well, this is really interesting. Let me go find this out. Let me go look that up and let's, and by the way, let's go, it's like,
Yeah.
It's not a conversation you have with anybody else.
Yeah, I had to go and find my book of troubadour poetry to look up
For
Arnaud.
Arnaud Daniel. Yeah. Yeah. He
It,
was
it,
super important for Eliot. Eliot really identified with him. Really
it
identified
is
with
it
Daniel.
is true that none of my sailing friends or musician friends can be induced to being this nerdy. It's not even close.
That's funny.
And we don't have a lot of years left to do this either, folks. Brian, you leaving?
No, I just wanted to tell a brief
Oh,
story.
Oh, good.
My 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 favorite professor at Pomona College was J.C. Miller, who taught quantum mechanics and advanced electricity and magnetism. But he said that he learned Italian so that he could read Galileo in the original. Galileo is still taught in the public schools in Italy because of his wonderful clarity. Um, and then Miller said, and then I discovered Dante.
Oh,
At
yeah.
the point he recited from memory an entire canto from
Oh, that's beautiful.
Inferno,
That's
and
beautiful.
um, that reminds me of how different words are. The purity of the Italian language of Galileo and the poetic language of Dante speak to us at different levels,
Yeah,
and so that's my story.
that's
That's a
nice.
by the
wonderful
way,
story.
on Galileo, there's a book called Galileo's Daughter by Darvis Lobel that I
Yeah.
can't. It's really a beautiful book.
Cool.
Marie Celesta, I think her name was, as a nun.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a nun.
Yeah.
So you guys, if you have friends who are not here, talk to them and tell them to come back.
Eh,
Okay.
Yeah.
I know Alan said, like, well, I really enjoyed Elliot so far, but I'm done with Elliot now. I'm like, go away, don't go away. We're getting there. We're getting there. It's not all grim and dour. But
yeah, well, there's a benefit in just seeing all you guys too. It's not just the poetry. And I kind of agree with Alan on Eliot. For some reason, I said this last time, found it more appealing when I was 20 than I do now. I'm just, my life is basically suffused with gratitude and wonder now. And I'm not really hearing the despair and the bitterness that I did when I was 20. That seems
Well, it's
upside
sort of like
down.
Nietzsche.
Seems like I should be despairing now and been happy then. So you go figure it out.
Yeah.
well, Four Quartets is not despairing. And it's very philosophical, so you should really be on happy ground there.
Yeah.
You can explain
Well,
to us all the stuff that I don't understand.
that I doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Goodbye.
And
Tuesday,
we'll see you in a
Wait,
week.
Thursday.
yeah,
See you
yeah,
from
Safe
Thursday, not
travels,
next
Anne.
Tuesday.
We'll see you in a
Okay.
week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. Enjoy your conference.
we will. It's going to be
Okay.
fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.